Welcome to the Rimworld mod rundown. We'll be taking a quick look at what you can expect to see from Vanilla Factions Expanded Insectoids 2.1. No, you haven't already watched this video. This is a follow-up to the original rundown, as the recent patch has now added the Wave Survival Storyteller, some new insects, hive buildings, a raid type, and fixed a few interactions. If you haven't already seen my coverage of Insectoids 2, the link will be in the description. We'll only be covering the new bits for the latest patch in this video, so I'll be speaking as if you already know how the other mechanics work. First up, if you're looking at your own game and thinking, well, I don't have any of this stuff, welcome to the highly reliable Steam Workshop update behaviour. Validating files isn't a surefire fix for this either. So if you see that one of your mods is supposed to have had a major update, but you can't find any of those changes in your own game, simply unsubscribe from it, wait for the mod to be removed, and then resubscribe. As long as you aren't opening and closing the game in between doing this, doing it while Rimpy is open, or God forbid, doing this while the game is running, you're going to be fine. You can thank Helixian for making me aware of this, as I always used to trust validate files would fix everything. It doesn't. Imagine recording an entire video with an outdated version of a mod, and then having to re-record everything. What kind of an idiot would do that?
Did you do this, you son of a bitch?
So let's go through what has been fixed or changed to begin with. This will also include the bits that came with the 1.01 patch. You'll no longer be able to place the basic artificial hives in an extremely tight cluster, as whilst they don't have that maintenance requirement, they do now need at least 5 tiles of space between one another. Worker insects will now fix hive walls. Hooray! So you don't need to destroy and rebuild them if they're close to breaking anymore. Hivestone walls still can't replace your standard hive walls, but they do have a more distinct texture, so it's easier to tell them apart now. The Titan tick is no longer vulnerable to fire, so the Nucleus bugs won't kill their own boss with their abilities anymore. On the topic of the Nucleus gene line, your own fuel mites will now correctly passively produce chem fuel. The silverfish has also had its passive production fixed, dropping a fat stack of 55 chitin every 20 days. All of your own Hunter and Defender cast insects now have a new gizmo, Hunt. If you've ever used Search and Destroy, this works extremely similarly. Toggling it on will see them automatically seeking out hostile targets on your tile, and you can right click on the Hunt gizmo to set all abilities in the selection of insects to auto-cast, meaning you don't need to micromanage dozens of buggos in a fight anymore, so they can somewhat better take care of themselves. You'll also notice that insects are no longer able to stack on top of one another and ignore combat spacing in certain circumstances. So no more holding down a single tile with a stack of pure murder. Now we have some new bits to play with. You're getting new royal versions of Mega Scarabs, Spellipedes and Mega Spiders. Compared to their vanilla versions, these come in with more health, armor and damage, at the cost of a little bit of movement speed. I've got the stats shown here side by side against their standard version, so you're able to see that not all upgrades are equal across the three, with the Royal Mega Spider having its speed severely hit, making it equal to a Megapede in terms of its movement. You won't have any way of creating these royal variants for yourself either, unfortunately, as their genetic composition and evolution path is a total mystery to your own colonists. As you'd expect from insects that are so difficult to replicate, they won't be showing up that frequently, so you'll likely encounter them with the new threat of insect burrows. This isn't strictly speaking a raid, it's a negative event. If you don't know the difference, don't worry. Realistically, it does not matter in 99% of cases. You need to be playing with an extremely specific world generation or a storyteller that would impose hard limits on what events can trigger. These raid incidents are things like Manhunter packs, Shamblers or Infestations, which is the class that burrows fall into. It means that even if you didn't include a hive faction in your world generation, you can still be hit by this, as it isn't tied to a specific group raiding you. This event will initially spawn a group of small, medium and large burrows, with some cocoons and glow pods to support it. These burrows are immune to all damage outside of explosives, so if you want to remove them as early as possible, you'll need grenades or a battery of mortars raining hell upon them. If you don't have access to explosive damage, don't worry. These burrows do collapse after a certain amount of insects have emerged. It just means you'll need to face the full wrath of the hive. With small burrows kicking out Royal Mega Scarabs, medium releasing Royal Spellipedes, and the large ones, you guessed it, Royal Mega Spiders, and Queens. Each burrow spawns an angry bug that will immediately descend upon your base. so they'll be keeping your colonists up for an extended period of time to have to fight back the swarm, potentially leading to collapses from exhaustion. Fortunately, the biggest burrow only supports 4 spawns. Regular will spawn 6 and the smallest burrows release 8 bugs. Upon reaching this cap, the burrow will collapse on itself as it's become too unstable. You'll find these royal insects to be a good source of royal jelly too, so if you're trying to progress your hive and build more expensive structures, these can actually help you out massively. Now, it'd be too simple just to include some royal insects without throwing in something truly terrifying as well, and this is where the Patriarch steps up. Treated as a new boss insect from the Sawn gene line, if you use enough thumpers you'll eventually see this angry lad turning up to support the assaults. As he's from the Sawn gene line, he does drop a ferrocore, so you'll be doubling the reward for using thumpers past a certain point. The Patriarch is the biggest bad you can face insect-wise, following a similar stat line to the Empress with buffed sharp and blunt armor, as well as extra health and far more damage. It still absolutely crawls though, so speed and evasion are key if you can utilise that approach. The Patriarch's unique abilities allow it to create small, standard and large burrows whilst it's on your map, with each of these abilities having an individual 1 hour cooldown, so if it's left unchallenged, it cycles between spawning these and simply overwhelms you with threats. This guy is a solid use case for bombardment, as you're able to clear up the burrows being created whilst also dealing damage to him. Or you can treat him like anything else from the Sawn gene line and abuse incendiary weapons to keep him tied up and running around in panic. If, through some miracle, you manage to get one of these under your own control, you won't be able to make use of its burrow creation abilities, as the Patriarch has lost the connection to the wild hive. You'll get a few new building options to utilise for your own hives too. With basic hive tech, you've now got hive doors. Hooray!
That's what I've been waiting for! That's what it's all about! Woo!
These doors are free to place, just like a hive wall, and with the same health as well, so you can't cheese your hive by replacing everything with doors. The other part you'll get from basic hive tech is the Thorn Spitter, costing 100 insect jelly and needing creep to construct. This is a super basic turret that operates like the Thorn Worm, just with far less range and only firing in a single shot. Each of these turrets is going to be costing you 5 insect jelly per day to maintain, with it having an 18-day lifespan when its tank is full. You'll need to really consider if building enough of these to make a meaningful difference in combat is at all worth it. They're expensive to build and keep, they do minimal damage on a long cooldown at a really poor range, and can be destroyed very easily. So that jelly might have been better spent on more farms to support your bugs when you go into standard or exotic hive tech. With that progress into standard hive tech, you'll see you have a new building called the Jelly Spreader, which sounds more like an adult anime. This will need to be placed on top of creep, costing 160 jelly. Twice a day this is going to transform a tile of creep into jelly creep. You'll see that the radius is massive compared to a creeper, so you aren't going to need to place a lot of these necessarily. It's just going to take a while for them to convert everything if you're only using 1 or 2. You will want to keep an eye on their consumption though, as these are going to use 90 insect jelly every 7 days to power their effect, so 90 jelly for 14 tiles. These jelly floors are quicker to clean than creep and they claim to impact movement more. However, in testing, colonists running across this flooring compared to creep looks damn near identical to me. Another upside is that the jelly floor is less flammable than creep, giving you more time to address blazes before they spiral out of control. Finally, at exotic hive tech you have the Royal Jelly Spreader, the follow-up anime that takes place 10 years later with the slime girl having become the queen. The Royal Spreader needs jelly flooring to support it, costing 160 normal jelly and 30 royal jelly too. Not only that, this is going to be consuming 1 royal jelly per hour, needing refueling every single day as it has such a small fuel capacity. This does at least work quickly, converting normal jelly floor over to royal jelly floor in just 3 hours. This will see its range return to something closer to the original creeper, so once a royal jelly spreader has completed its area, it's well worth tearing it down to pay for another one elsewhere. This royal jelly definitely makes non-insect races slower though, it's extremely noticeable. Not only that, royal jelly is completely immune to fire, so it will not spread blazes throughout your hive colonies, making for a much safer defensive hive if you're using it to take the initial strike from all threats. Again, because you can just run a mop over this, royal jelly is also super quick to clean. All that leaves is handheld, renamed in the game but not on the mod page I see, Han Horde mode. While still playing like a normal storyteller most of the time, Han will occasionally send specific horde raids that are made up of an insect threat. By defeating this buggy menace, you are rewarded with a random research project that's currently available to you. However, this storyteller doesn't disable you researching, so you're still free to grab any essential projects as needed. To make this storyteller a little bit more interesting to run, I would suggest using it as a research gate for your own progress. That way you can see what direction your colony naturally ends up going in order to survive, as you'll be unable to grab your favourite tech reliably, needing to instead lean more on trade, loot or quests, or just hope that the roll of the dice after a horde wave lands in your favour. Playing this way can make the game a bit more spicy. Otherwise, horde-based storytellers rapidly become an exercise in building a perfect kill box and grabbing the best ranged weapons, making the entire thing a total crapshoot. And that's the 1.1 update. 2.1 update? I guess it counts as 2.1. I wouldn't normally cover updates to mods, but I specifically mentioned in the Insectoids rundown that there was more content coming in the future. And yes, I'm well aware that the Black Hive is a thing if you're using alpha animals alongside this. I'm going to do all of the alpha animals content in a rundown for that mod itself, because it has so many interactions with other mods that it will be split all over the place if I tried to cover them in the other videos, making it a nightmare to track down across the rundown series. I'm also going to use this video as an opportunity to say that yes, I'm moving over to a when it's done approach for the release schedule, so you can expect bigger videos with less filler mods as it were in between. There are still smaller mods that I do want to cover, but if they're quick videos that I can just throw out in a day, it doesn't feel like I'm screwing you out of one of the 2 scheduled videos anymore. Equally with massive mods like the Alpha series, Vanilla Genetics, Dubbed, CE, SOS, Void, or something that I've been messing around with recently, Ancient Urban Ruins, I can take the time that I need to get those videos done correctly without rushing and skimming over mechanics at times. It's also an opportunity to start the Rimworld Mod Basics series, to cover the near 100 or so mods that you guys suggested, including all kinds of things from small tweaks to individual mechanics, performance enhancements, visual treats and entire AI overhauls. They're all mods that don't quite fit in with the rundown series, but they do deserve recognition and a bit of explanation. So keep an eye out for that. It's what I'm currently working on and I really need your feedback on the first episode when it releases to know what you think. Thanks for watching folks. If you have any mods you'd like to see a full breakdown for or suggestions of mods you'd like to see covered, feel free to leave them in the comments, I might get around to them. I'll be back again soon with another Rimworld mod rundown. Wherever you are in the world, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon or evening. Take care.